Today we're making Chili Con Carne, and it's my version of a chili. It's not super strong, but I think it's very nice. It contains 660 calories, 53 grams of proteins, 74 grams of carbs, and 16 grams of fat. And today we're using chuck, and as you know, to make chuck somewhat nice to eat, you need to cook it for a long time. So we're gonna slice this up to medium-sized chunks. And then we're gonna salt them and we're gonna pepper them on both sides. And I like to do this with 2 pans. Mainly because I think it's easier to control if you have a frying pan for searing the meat, and then it's much easier to deglaze as well. I bought one of those low-calorie cooking oils that you can roughly count as 0 calories, and trying that out, and so far I'm very pleased with it, and I'm gonna be using that for a lot of things in the future, and it's very much over my expectations. It's really nice. So basically, we're just gonna give this a spray to get a nice sear, and once that's hot, we're gonna place our meat in there. And I use 2 pans because, first of all, we don't want to sear everything at once. We want to do it in batches anyway, and that means that when these pieces are done searing, we can place them in the other pot. And also it's much easier to deglaze the pan if you have removed all of the meat. If you used your Dutch oven for the searing, it's gonna be tricky to see that everything is deglazed and removed, and it's gonna be horrible to do the washing up later on. So this is the way I prefer. Make sure you get a nice sear on everything. And we're not just gonna sear one side, we're gonna sear a lot of them. And as you can see, it's starting to stick to the pan, and that's not the spraying oil's fault. That's something we're expecting. And while our meat is searing away, we can start chopping 2 onions. And this is gonna be cooking for a long time, so we don't need to do anything fancy. Just roughly chop 2 onions and set that aside for later. So back to our meat. This is done searing now, which means we can transfer that to our Dutch oven and get started on our next batch. I'm using 1 kilogram of chuck, and that's gonna need 2 batches to sear. So spray it again with our cooking oil and just place our meat in there and let that sear. And once that's done, we're gonna have a very nice seared surface, and we're gonna have a lot of flavor left in the pan. So we're going to deglaze the pan to get all of those flavors transferred into our Dutch oven. While we're waiting on our second batch to sear, we can prepare 5 cloves of garlic. And all we need to do is peel them, and I like to cut off the roots because then you can just basically use a garlic crusher and crush everything and just pour the things that are left within the garlic crush just straight into the pan. So our meat is now seared, and as you can see, we have a lot of burnt stuff in the bottom of our pan. And this is no problem at all. We're gonna spray this again lightly, and then we're gonna hit it with our onions. And our onions gonna release some water, so it's gonna start to deglaze just from the onions. But we're gonna sear those until they start to become soft. Get a bit of browning on the onions as well. And while we're waiting on that, we're gonna chop 3 dried chipotle chilies, and this is gonna give us a nice smokiness to our chili. And I like to use 1 chili as well. these chilies were super strong. So taste them and see if they're strong. Sometimes they're not strong at all, and sometimes they're insanely strong. So give it a taste and go by judgment. Since I didn't want this to be super strong, I'm just using one, but I'm using the whole thing, the seeds and everything. Once we have 1 or 2 minutes left of frying our onions, we can crush our garlic in and fry that for 1 or 2 minutes as well. And don't forget to salt this mixture as well. Then we're gonna add 2 tablespoons of tomato paste. And we're gonna sear that for a little while as well, and this is gonna burn to the bottom as well. And we're not on a high heat or anything, we're at medium. My stove goes from 1 to 9, so this is at half. And what we're gonna do then is just add a little bit of water. The amount doesn't really matter, because if it's too much we can just reduce our chili later on, and if it's too little you're not gonna be able to deglaze your pan, so just add some more. We can use our wooden spoon just to scrape all of those flavors that are stuck in our pan off the bottom of the bottom of the pan, meaning that everything will be added to our chili. This will be so much easier to clean up later on. And if you didn't get everything, I like to just add some water and do some final touches and get all of everything in there. As you might have seen, that's almost clean now, so it's super easy to do the final washing up. To this we're gonna add 800 grams of crushed tomatoes. Then we're gonna add our chopped chilies. Stir everything together. And all we need to do then is add our spices and just leave it on the stove. So I like to do 2 teaspoons of cumin, 1 teaspoon of thyme, 1 teaspoon of oregano, 1 tablespoon of vinegar, 1 tablespoon of soy, and 1 teaspoon of cocoa powder. And as always, I aim for 1 teaspoon of salt per 500 grams of meat, and since we're using 1 kilogram, we're gonna need 2 teaspoons. Even though we salted everything earlier, this usually is needed. So stir everything together, put a lid on, get it boiling, and once it's boiling, reduce the heat to low so that it's just simmering, and then we're gonna leave it for roughly 3 hours. And as usual, I go for 65 grams of rice. If you're using any other amount of rice, you can always go to the spreadsheet that's linked in the description and change the amounts of meat or rice or anything, and the macros will follow, so it will do all of the calculations for you. And yes, I know my way of cooking rice is somewhat conventional, but it's super easy. You just drain the water afterwards, and I think it's fine. Finally, once everything has been cooking and it's almost done, all we need to do is add our beans, and we're gonna put that in a sieve to remove the liquid, give it a rinse, and all we need to do then is stir them in, and everything is done. Give it a final taste if you need any more salt or pepper or anything. Now is your chance. I've added some salt, I've added some pepper, and we're making some chicken kebab for the kids since they don't like chili, which is what you see in the background. And that's it. It's really very simple. I think it's very tasty, and I hope you try it, and I hope you enjoy. And thanks for watching. And to those who have commented, thank you for all of your kind words. Hope you try it, and I see you next week.